Hello, I'm Shelley Klein, historian and director of education at the Midwest Center for Holocaust Education. Thank you for joining us tonight as we mark National Coming Out Day. With this program, we hope to highlight the experiences of the LGBTQ community and the Holocaust. And this is a history that has taken decades to be incorporated into the broader history of the Holocaust. And so it's something that we think is really important, and one of the reasons why we, of course, have this program. This is our fifth year of having a program dedicated to this purpose. We have partnered with Congregation Kol Ami and also with Johnson County Pride. We are grateful to their support and for their continued support of the LGBT community in the Kansas City area. Tonight with us, we have the chair of JoCo Pride, Hazel Krebs, to say a few words. Hazel?
Thank you, Shelley. Hi, I'm Hazel Krebs. I'm an author and speaker inspiring the world to live enthusiastically. And like Shelley said, the chair of your Johnson County Pride Association, proud co-sponsors of this event. Thank you so much, Shelley, and the Midwest Center for Holocaust Education for allowing JoCo Pride to co-sponsor such an important educational opportunity. Our mission at Johnson County Pride, we are a 501c3, by the way. Our mission is to support the LGBTQ community of Johnson County, Kansas through outreach, education, and celebration. Clearly, Voices of the Shadows, the LGBTQ experience during the Nazi era, fits into our mission through education, which as I see being critical historical information becoming even more relevant in 2025. Also, we are excited to be part of the National Coming Out Day. Particularly, it's important for us. Last weekend was our biggest event of the year, Pride in the Park. Let's use it as a celebration of National Coming Out Day. And I adore the fact that we can do this. And just say at the event, we were honored with the proclamation from Johnson County, Kansas. Commissioner Janae Hanslick presented this proclamation to us. So excited to be able to share this here today. So excited to be here. Thank you for this opportunity. And back to you, Shelley.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for all the important work that you do in our community. Tonight we are in webinar format, so if you do have questions, please put those in the Q&A and I will moderate those to our speaker at the conclusion of his talk. It is now my pleasure to welcome Eric Marcus, the founder and host of the award-winning podcast, Making Gay History. He is also the co-producer of Those Who Were There, a podcast drawn from Yale's Fortunoff Video Archive of Holocaust Testimonies. And he is an author and speaker. And on a personal note, I have long admired his work on making gay history and his ability to tell really important stories that have been often left out of mainstream history. So it is truly an honor to have him with us tonight to tell us more very important stories that we need to hear. Eric, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Shelley. It's a delight to speak. It's a delight. Sorry, suddenly my face came up on the screen. I startled myself. I always think, who is that old person? It's a pleasure to be with you this evening to share this work. I'm coming to you from upstate New York, one time zone away. This is a series that I've wanted to produce for a long time. Making Gay History, the podcast, we launched in 2016. And we were told at first to expect a few hundred listeners per episode. And most of the episodes are drawn from my archive of more than 100 interviews that I conducted for an oral history book called Making Gay History, which was published in 2 editions in 1992 and 2002. We've now produced 14 seasons across 9 years, 150 episodes, and we've had 6.5 million episode downloads in 200 countries and territories around the world. Most of our episodes are drawn from my archive. This series is not. It's one that I wanted to do for a long time because over the years, I've read bits and pieces about the experiences of primarily gay men during the Holocaust. I was very interested in this subject, in no small part, the general subject of the Holocaust, because I grew up in a neighborhood of Holocaust survivors and war refugees in Queens, New York. a neighborhood called Kew Gardens. It wasn't unfamiliar to me to see people with numbers on their arms. Friends of mine had parents who were survivors. Often people spoke German because they were from Germany or from Austria. So it's a topic I wasn't afraid of. And given my work with Making Gay History, it felt natural to pursue research into this area to see if there was enough material to produce a series of episodes on the experiences of LGBTQ people during the Nazi era. It turns out we had so much material that we doubled our original plan of 6 episodes to produce 12 episodes. And tonight, what I'm going to do is share with you some clips from that series to give you a sense of the history. All of these clips are drawn from the series. Many of the people I featured tonight are featured in the series with full episodes. Some of them are included in the episodes where we have multiple voices. So we wanted to do justice to a broad range of experiences beyond the fact that the Nazis put gay men in concentration camps and marked them with a pink triangle. The average person knows nothing about the subject, and I knew a little about the subject, but not much, and learned a lot along the way. I wanted us to tell the story of the men who were persecuted for their homosexuality more fully, and to give a sense of the danger that others across the LGBTQ spectrum found themselves in after the Nazis came to power in 1933. Also, I wanted us to explore the experiences of LGBTQ people who were persecuted for reasons other than their sexuality, Jewish or political prisoners who survived the camps, as well as resistance fighters who risked their lives to save others, like Frida Belinfanta, who I look forward to introducing you to a little later in the presentation. Making Gay History is dedicated to letting people tell their stories in their own words, so this subject came with a huge challenge. There are painfully few firsthand testimonies. Also, the testimonies that do exist aren't always in English. For instance, there's only one oral history, one, in English from a man convicted for his homosexuality. So we hired actors to voice some of the recorded testimonies that we did have access to, as well as some written accounts that we had voiced. Testimonies from gay and lesbian Jews are even rarer, and they're even more difficult to locate. This is something I learned along the way with our research. That's because in the major Holocaust oral history archives, the Shoah Foundation, the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in D.C., and the Fortunow Video Archive at Yale University, the subjects are identified as Jewish survivors, not homosexual survivors. Tagging systems and keyword searches in those archives only help so much. Just one example, a section of an interview in which a survivor explicitly addresses his homosexuality might be tagged with a vague non-LGBTQ specific phrase like courtship or sexual development. So my principal researcher, Inga Dataya, who's Making Gay History's deputy director, went down a lot of rabbit holes, listened to a lot of testimony that didn't get her to where she wanted to be. Also, a keyword search for homosexuality is far more likely to lead to witness testimonies that contain homophobic statements rather than an interview with someone who identifies as gay. And we even turned up one interviewee who gave 2 different accounts of his experiences, one seemingly straight and the other gay. I'll share a clip from his interview in just a moment. So I just need now to share my screen with you, so just bear with me. Rolf Hirschberg, a gay German Jew, immigrated to the US with his life partner Emil in 1937. He's only featured briefly in our series, but his testimony is fascinating because for his on-camera interview for the Shoah Foundation, he mentions a wife and children and refers to Emil, his partner, as a cousin. For the audio-only format for the Holocaust Museum in DC, which was recorded just 2 months earlier, Hirschberg talks openly about his relationship with Emil and even mentions several visits to the Institute of Magnus Hirschfeld, the founder of the world's first LGBTQ rights organization in 1897. Magnus Hirschfeld also founded a sexuality institute in 1919 in Berlin. If you've ever seen the famous photo of a book burning in Berlin, it was Magnus Hirschfeld's archive, his library, that was first destroyed by the Nazis in 1933. So it's something of a marvel that Rolf Hirschberg managed to keep all the facts in these 2 accounts straight. He was 94 years old at the time he gave the interviews. It was not uncommon for us to find testimonies that were given by people in their 80s and 90s for a few reasons, which I'll explain a little later. So here's a clip of Hirschberg that gives a sense of the early years of the Third Reich and the double jeopardy he found himself in as a Jew and as a gay man.
And 1936, I started getting letter, "You dirty Jew, we know you are homosexual," and so on and so forth. "You better look out," and but we get you, and blah, blah, blah. I was very excited, and my mother said, that's stupid. I said, "Don't say such nonsense. These guys are liable to do everything or anything." So I went to my lawyer. He said, "Ralphie, don't be afraid. These are beginners. They don't even know that simply lousy Nazi youngsters. They want to make money and think they can oppress you. That's it." Well, anyway, so my friend says, "You know what? I think it's the time we are leaving."
So how did you feel as a homosexual in these years between 33 and 37?
As like a stranger, to tell you the truth, because I was born in Berlin, right? And I was a Berliner. But when the Nazis came, you had the feeling you are a stranger all of a sudden.
I sometimes know how he feels these days, sadly. When Hirschberg left Berlin in 1937, the persecution of homosexuals by the Nazis was near its peak. The Nazis used something called Paragraph 175. It was an anti-sodomy law that had been passed. It had been German criminal code for more than a half a century by the time the Nazis came to power. But it was strengthened under the Nazis. So even a whisper of suspicion or a perceived intention toward homosexual activity could get you arrested, sort of like the don't ask, don't tell policy that was signed by President Bill Clinton here for the US military, that was put in place in the 90s, but later repealed. Efforts to hunt down gay men under the Nazis were made easier by the existence of something called pink lists. These were lists of known or suspected homosexuals that were maintained by the local police forces in Germany long before the start of the Nazi era. The Gestapo would track these men down, interrogate them, and search their houses for additional leads. As Michael Ritterman, an Austrian actor in his late 20s, discovered, keeping an address book was especially dangerous, and it put both you and your acquaintances at tremendous risk. Here's a clip from Michael Ritterman.
And I came home one night and my stepmother told me that the Gestapo had called. And as I was out, they said, "Fine, we'll come back tomorrow morning," which indeed they did. And there was a house search in my room, and in my writing desk, they found an address book, which they took with them, and then I was taken to the Gestapo headquarters, where I was interrogated by these Gestapo men in a way which I would, in hindsight, say was perfectly correct and acceptable. But when the interrogation at the Gestapo was over, I was taken to a police prison, where I found myself together with two other chaps in the cell. And during the first night there, I was taken into a room in the cellar where there were, I would say, I'm not certain about the actual number, but I would say about 10 men, and each of them held a stick very much heavier than my walking stick. And they had my address book in their hands, this one after the other. I have to stand to attention in front of each one, had to undress, and then they opened my address book and said, "Who is this man?" So I said, "I'm very sorry, I can't tell you." And this interrogation went on from man to man, accompanied each time by a desperate blow with that heavy stick. Now, eventually, and there is a blank now in my mind, I came to on the floor of the cell, which you may know or may not know, is never in complete darkness during the night. There's always a little lamp hanging down, so there is a sort of semi-light. And when I came to, I thought, how extraordinary. Somebody must have poured honey over my face. And I did this and looked at my hand and realized that it was covered in blood. So, of course, my first reaction when I got over the immediate shock was that my face had been bashed in. And I thought, what's going to happen to my future? I can't work in a theater with a monstrously disfigured face. So time went by, not many weeks, until I was called out of my cell and taken to the ground floor where this same gentleman who interrogated me waited for me and said, "I have good news for you. You are free. But don't run away. Wait for official information by letter that the case against you, because of lack of evidence, is closed." And that is the end of my story and the fact that I'm still sitting here talking to you.
As you might imagine, Michael Ritterman did not wait for that letter, and he fled. He fled to the UK, where he went on to have an acting career. If you're old enough, like me, to remember a show called The Saint with Roger Moore, Ritterman made a couple of appearances in that show. Between 1933 and 1945, about 100,000 German gay men were arrested for allegedly violating paragraph 175. More than half were convicted. Most were sent to jail. Between 7,000 and 10,000 were sent to concentration camps. It was there that they were forced to wear the pink triangle patch that's now familiar to us. The pink triangle was a magnet for the scorn and hatred of SS officers who took pleasure in devising special ways to hurt and humiliate these men. What's interesting, something I learned through this research, was that the Nazis didn't set out to conduct a genocide against gay men or LGBTQ people. They really set out to convert German gay men and make them good straight German men. Along the way, because they were treated so badly, thousands died. Next, I'm going to share a clip with you from Jewish survivor Kitty Fisher, who was a sympathetic witness to the suffering of one pink triangle man.
And then they led you to the latrine. They were full of muck and shit and vomit, and I thought, I am not sitting in this dreck when my mother taught me you never sit on other people's toilet. And I crouched, and they caught me from the back with a stick, and I fell into the latrine. So I was full of shit, no paper, no underwear, stark naked, and suddenly I saw a striped trousers walking towards me and big wooden clogs, and it was a man, and I looked for the Star of David, and he had a big pink triangle and a number, and he carried a bucket and he carried a brush. And he said in a very beautiful German, not in Yiddish, hurry, hurry, get up, I have work to do. I said, I can't. I am so ashamed. What is this? And I looked at this pink triangle, and he said to me, I'm gay. Ich bin schwul. But did I know what schwul was? I said, is that a religion? He said, no, I'm a homosexual. So I still didn't know, and he explained to me that with his partner, he lived in Munich, and the Gestapo under paragraph 175, which was for perversion, broke into the flat. The partner went to Dachau. He came to Auschwitz in 1940, 4 years before I met him. And a German, a non-Jew, and because he was not a Jew, they asked him sarcastically when they shaved him and put on the pyjama, what is your profession? He said, I'm an academic portrait painter from Munich. We have just the right thing for you. And they took him to a laundry and gave him a bucket with whitewash and a brush. And since 1940, 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, he had to brush the shit of the latrine so that he shouldn't come out of experience with his brush. And that's what Germans did to Germans.
He shouldn't come out of experience. He should continue to have practice with his brush. It's just mind-boggling. Once the war began in 1939, following the Nazi invasion of Poland, the Nazis were uneven in how they persecuted gay people in the occupied territories. What I found fascinating was that, and I didn't know this, and I should have from all the studying I had done as a young person, they viewed the Poles, for example, or they planned to enslave the Poles and didn't think of them as human. They weren't so concerned about Polish men having sex with Polish men. They were, however, concerned about Polish men infecting German soldiers with homosexuality, because once you try it a single time, you're hooked. Pierre Sell, from the Alsace-Lorraine region in northeastern France, experienced the worst of it. In 1941, he was tortured by the Gestapo and deported to the internment camp at Schirmeck. He was 18 years old at the time. His boyfriend, Joe, had also been arrested and deported with Pierre. I just want to give you a heads up. This next clip from Pierre Sell is harrowing. He tells the story of what happened to Joe. The original testimony is in French. The voiceover actor you'll hear is Arnie Burton. Again, it's really tough to hear, but I think we have to bear witness.
Et nous avions tous les matins des appels, ça s'appelait.
We had roll call, appel, they called it. Every morning we had to go out to the main square of the camp. There were gallows there too for hangings. Sometimes they'd leave bodies out for days on end with the crows circling. That was always there for us to see.
Un matin, je ne vois pas Joe.
One morning I didn't see Joe. And then I saw him coming, flanked by 2 Gestapo officers. And then they read out a death sentence in German, of course. Everything I'm telling you about him, he was my boyfriend. My boyfriend, right? He wasn't my lover because it was all so very pure. It was wonderful what the two of us had together. And there he was. They made him undress, stripped down, completely naked. They put a bucket, a tin bucket, on his head so you could only see his body. And then they set the camp dogs on him. I want this to be known. I want it to be said. Now I want it repeated in every house, everywhere. I want everyone to know that this is what the Germans did. When Joe was being eaten by the dogs, they had music playing.
What music?
German classical music. Oh, yes, that's right. Some of it covered the screaming, but the screaming was already covered by the bucket on his head, right? The metal bucket. Except at times that made it louder, amplified it. This is an evil thing, what I'm telling you, yes? Now you understand why I have a candle burning at home.
The memory of Joe.
His life. And I'm 70 years old now, and the older I get, the more I need to think and feel. I think and I hope that his last thought was about me, because I can't stop myself from thinking about him.
Je peux pas m'empêcher de penser à lui.
I can't.
Je peux pas, c'est pas possible.
I can't do it. Ever.
52 years later, he has a candle burning at home for Joe, for the memory of Joe. For so many of these interviews, it's as if the people being interviewed are right there again, living this experience. It makes it so understandable why so few ultimately gave testimony, and why those who did gave so very late in life, fearing that if they didn't share their stories, the stories would be lost forever. Another person we featured in our series is Lucy Solani, one of only 2 known transgender people to have survived the camps. Solani, who was Italian, underwent gender affirmation surgery after the war. Solani was drafted into the fascist Italian army, deserted the Italian army, was forced into the Nazi German army, and deserted the Nazi German army. And that was really only the start of this extraordinary, harrowing adventure, journey, I should say, not adventure. And miraculously, she survived. But when she was caught in 1944, she was deported to Dachau, where she stayed until the camp was liberated. Here she is describing her arrival in Dachau. The original testimony is in Italian. The voiceover actor you'll hear is Broadway star Bianca Lee, the star, one of the stars of the show Oh Mary, who is herself a trans woman.
Vedo un vialone dentro e tutte ste baracche.
I saw an avenue with all these barracks, one after another. We went in. They made us strip naked. Someone came with a bucket and a brush. That was the disinfection. They walked by you and swiped you with this brush. It was a terrible burning feeling on my skin, like my skin was coming away, which it did the following morning.
Dalla mattina dopo ci hanno dato degli abiti.
They gave us some old clothes, full of lice, full of them. So full there were nests in there, a hive. How disgusting. They gave us a number. I was 15504. Then they threw us into the barracks. The barracks had a round sink with spigots to wash ourselves, but in the morning it was completely iced over. We had to break the ice before washing. The first day they assigned us a job. You couldn't just be there in exchange for nothing. You had to earn it. They gave you a small tin bowl and a piece of bread at lunchtime. My first job was to take out the people who had died in the barracks overnight and line up their corpses outside. Every day there were 3, 4, or 5 of them. They were replaced by new people. I brought the corpses to the crematorium, where they burned the dead. There were so many, we just threw them on the ground. There was no other way. One morning I saw, not my cart, but in the next cart, I saw a hand moving. I said, "Look, that one's alive." They said, "Yeah, he has to die anyway. It's time to die." They threw him in alive. They burned him alive.
Hanno bruciato vivo.
We've also featured Frida Belinfante, a Dutch lesbian whose parents were Jewish and Christian. She had a promising career as a cellist and a conductor, but when the Germans invaded the Netherlands, she dedicated herself to helping Jews in danger of deportation. She wasn't just a skilled musician, she figured out how to remove the J from the identification cards, I should say, without breaking the seal. Belinfante joined a resistance operation that forged the false IDs for Jews and other people wanted by the Gestapo, but there was a problem. The population registry in Amsterdam maintained duplicate copies of all official IDs. And as Belinfante pointed out during a meeting of the resistance group, if the authorities arrested someone whose ID didn't have a duplicate, they'd realize there were false papers in circulation for hundreds of people, and their lives would all be in danger. So the group decided to bomb the registry. In this next clip, Belinfante talks about Willem Arendeus, the leader of the group. Belinfante was 90 at the time of her interview.
The leader of the attack actually was Arendeus. And he was a gay man, and very obvious. I mean, everybody knew it, who knew him. And Arendeus was very quiet about what he did, very modest about what he did. But he got his satisfaction to show what a gay man could do. He was called Tiki. We all called him Tiki. He was very shy and kind of an inferiority complex. He felt inferior about his being a gay man, and I have never felt that way. I've never been apologetic about what I am. But I could never get him to feel any different, because he had felt that way all his life. Very apologetic and not accepted. But gradually I learned what was really this man and his value. And we worked as a team. In that group we became very close, and one time we had a conversation about the danger that was over our head, and I said, or he said, do you think that we see the end of this war? And I said, I don't think so. He said, I don't either. And he said, do you mind? And I said, no, I don't. He said, I don't either. And I might have added, well, I'd rather give my life for something than give it for nothing. When I get a bomb on my head, I die too, and I have not done anything with my life. I want a high price for mine. He says, I think the same way.
They succeeded in bombing the registry, but Arendeus and 11 other members of the resistance group were executed for their involvement in the bombing. Just before his death, Arendeus asked his lawyer to, quote, tell the world that homosexuals are not cowards. For 3 months after Arendeus and the other members of the resistance group were arrested and executed, Belinfante dressed as a man to keep ahead of the Gestapo who were looking for her. She said she was so successful in her disguise that she passed her mother 3 times on the street and her mother didn't recognize her. Belinfante escaped to Switzerland, climbing over the Alps in waist-deep snow. After the war, she immigrated to the US, where she resumed her musical career, and founded the Orange County Philharmonic in California. Belafonte, as you heard, was open and matter-of-fact about her sexuality. That wasn't the case with Jewish survivor Margot Human. On several occasions, Human provided testimony about her experiences as a teenage girl in the Theresienstadt ghetto and later in the Auschwitz concentration camp. In these accounts, she spoke about her friendship with a Viennese girl named Dita and how that friendship sustained her throughout the war. It wasn't until 2018 when Human was introduced to Dr. Anna Haikova, who's a scholar of queer history and the Holocaust, that she opened up about the romantic nature of the relationship. Human allowed Dr. Haikova to share this more intimate part of her story. So when we hear Human's earlier testimony, which I'm about to share with you, we can listen between the lines. So here's Margot Human.
Why do you think you survived?
My will to live. I never gave up, ever, at any time.
Where did you get that from?
I don't know. I don't know. It's something being together with Dita, and we did together. Now we realize now, we talk about it, because I see her, and we meet at least once a year. Either I go to Toronto or she comes here. And she's married there, she has 3 children, she also has a bunch of grandchildren. Her husband is a pathologist. Neither one of us would have survived without the other, and we both realize that. Because we gave each other hope and support and love and friendship. And I think that's what makes life worth living. And this is why my experiences are probably not very similar to other people's. Because even so it was absolute hell, what I remember most is my friendship and love for Dita of all those years.
When Dita was dying, Margot flew to be by her side and was with her when she died. There are a lot of reasons why testimonies of LGBTQ people who lived through the Nazi era are so scarce, why these voices were repressed or silenced. The Nazi persecution of homosexuals may have been unprecedented in modern history in its scale and brutality, but the criminalization of homosexuality, the devaluing of LGBTQ lives, and homophobia and discrimination didn't begin or end with Hitler's rise to power. We know that from our own experiences living through parts of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st. And for all people who survived the Holocaust, gay or not, Jewish or not, the trauma of what they lived through left them reluctant to share their experiences. Often they just didn't want to relive that trauma by putting it into words. The last clip I'd like to play for you before I take questions is, to me, emblematic of what LGBTQ people had to overcome in order to share their experiences. It's from a 2015 interview with Gary Philipp, a gay German Jew who waited until he was 88 years old to share his wartime experiences. And that was only because a friend of his contacted somebody who did interviews of survivors and encouraged her to contact Gary Philipp, and he agreed to be interviewed. He was one of the many boys, gay and straight, who were sexually abused by kapos or others within the concentration camp system who abused their power to get their sexual needs met. Even 7 decades after the war, you can feel Gary Philipp's pain in his voice, and he needs gentle encouragement to open up. The interviewer you'll hear is Ina Novozelskis, and she is very careful in the questions she asks and how she asks them.
Gary, you mentioned some of the episodes that you went through, and I want to ask you now about some much more personal things, and I apologize in advance for the prying that this involves. But I think the reason why I am doing so is so that people in the future would have a much clearer sense of exactly what kind of danger, what kind of suffering people went through when they had no power, when they were completely helpless. So if we could start with this incident when you were in Sachsenhausen and someone pulled you aside, what did that entail? This man pulled you aside. He was a couple. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
Well, when he looked at me and I looked at him, I knew exactly, my instinct told me I knew exactly what it meant right then and there. I knew that.
and what did it mean? What did it mean?
Well, it meant that he wanted to, if I like it or not, I have to sleep with him. I have to have,
I understand.
and I did this for several weeks.
Was this
Several weeks, as long as I was in that camp.
was this the first time something like
That
that?
was the first time, not before.
Not before.
No, not before.
So in other words, it's your first sexual experience,
Yes,
and it happens in this way.
yes. I had another, it was not a sexual experience when we were in Russia. We went out to some place in the country. There was some big building, I don't know, we were supposed to work something there, and I walked away a little bit from the building. I was all by myself, standing by a tree, and out of the blue skies came a soldier, a German soldier, and he looked me deep in the eyes and he said to me, "You want to get away from all this? You want to go with me?" And I hesitated, of course. I said, yes, no, yes, no. Maybe it's a good thing I didn't do that, because we probably both would be caught and would be shot. So that was another experience, and that gay experience.
Did you know you were gay at that age?
I was just young. I just didn't know. I didn't know. I thought I would outgrow it, you know. I didn't know. And sex was not on my mind.
Survival.
In all this, you know.
I can imagine that it
No,
wouldn't be.
sex was not on my mind.
And how were you able to deal with this? I mean, I can't imagine.
I just live from day to day. That's what you do. You cannot think of tomorrow or day after tomorrow. You just so. I can't believe it. I'll be honest with you. When I think about it night and day, I can't believe it today that this happened. That this happened, this whole thing, that this happened to me. That I'm still here. I'm still here because it's very stressful. Very stressful. I have nightmares.
Still.
I do. Yeah, I dream a lot.
And it's about those times?
Yeah, it's always about power and not having the power and being, can't do what you want to do. Somebody's following you. It's always in that direction. Yes.
Thank you, Gary, for opening up like this. I apologize and I appreciate it.
Yeah, you've been very good.
Thank you.
You've been very good doing this. It went easy, better than I thought.
I'm glad.
I had sleepless nights about this. I really did.
I believe you.
I
believe
did.
you.
I really don't like to talk about it, because it's terrible at night for me. The nights are terrible.
I wish there wasn't such a cost, and I appreciate that despite the cost, you have agreed to speak with us. It is a real gift, and I thank you for it.
I thank you for taking the time, and I hope it never happens again like that. But
I hope so too.
it's unbelievable, you know.
Once more, thank you.
I thank you for being so patient with me.
I hear the little boy in his voice. It's more than 70 years later. And I look at that picture of Gary Phillip on the left in your screen, and that little boy could never have imagined the life that he was going to face. Gary Phillip's interview brings home to me the extraordinary value of the testimonies we've shared in this series, which you can find in total on our website at makinggayhistory.org. You can listen to the episodes. We have links to episode notes. All the research we've done, you can find there. Also archival photos. These stories bring to light our hidden past and remind us of the countless unrecorded lives that were lost, destroyed, and silenced during the Nazi era and beyond. And they carry warnings for the future that demand our vigilance, especially as we here in the United States face the unfolding dark times. And I think we ignore these warnings at our peril. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and send this back to you, Shelley.
Thank you for that. Go get the spotlight for everyone here. Thank you for sharing those stories, and especially to pointing us to where we can hear more more about these episodes. One thing that strikes me from the beginning is, since these episodes have been out, how have they been received?
This has been the most downloaded series of anything we've done. We've had probably 300,000 downloads. There's been a lot of interest. This was the first time that we've had lots of horrible comments about our work on Facebook and other places, but thankfully I have a social media team and they erase everything, and I don't have to look at it. So it's really surprised me that in the past we haven't gotten anti-gay stuff, but we've gotten anti-Semitic stuff, even though most of the people we feature are not Jewish. You know, there are a lot of people out there in the world who like to say awful things. But by and large, it's been an extraordinarily positive, we've had extraordinarily positive feedback. I just received an invitation from Yad Vashem to present there, which I will be doing not in person, but virtually in June of next year. They'll invite their 40,000 Holocaust educators on their mailing list. So very positive.
Yeah. Well, that's great. It's great to hear it's the most downloaded, for sure.
Let me just tell you one story. In January, I presented to the Association of Holocaust Organizations, more than 100 people from around the US and some from around the world who are experts on the Holocaust. And I'm expert in LGBTQ history. I feel confident when I speak to a room full of people that I know more than anybody, even though most of what I know is not so deep. But I felt nervous speaking to a group of Holocaust experts. And so I asked at the beginning, how many of you here are familiar with this history around LGBTQ experience? And almost everyone raised their hands. And I thought, I'm really in trouble here because I'm not going to be telling people anything they didn't know. After I did the presentation, several people came up to me and said, I was familiar, but I had no idea. You know, they were familiar with the experiences of gay men a little bit, but they said they'd never heard the voices. And hearing the voices is so profound because it takes you into their experiences in a way that the printed word doesn't.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think so often we are, we do use survivor testimony frequently with lots of other survivors. We're used to doing that. And I think part of what you pointed out in the beginning is the real scarcity of the voices that we do have, and how the difficulty you had even finding the material to work with, or the right coding. Could you speak a little bit more about that process, your research process, and how you were able to pull this material together?
Well, I wish Inga Detaya, my deputy director, was here because she worked on this worked on the research for 2 years. And fortunately, I didn't have to listen to the tapes that she listened to. I heard edited versions because it was excruciating. It really almost broke the whole team to hear these stories. This is not our area of expertise where we're accustomed to listening to these tapes. Although I produce a podcast for the Fortunoff Archive and have listened to plenty of tapes. So Inga spent time going through archives and sitting in libraries and trying to find material. She looked at documentaries, which is how we found the Lucy Solani tape. She looked at written testimony, which is how we found not in anything I presented tonight, but in the series you'll hear, we used actors to voice printed testimony that Inga found. So she looked everywhere. The challenge then was to synthesize the material, to organize it in a way that would be digestible, and not include everything. Inga asked me if we could expand. Originally, we were going to do just one introductory episode, 30 minutes. And then Inga asked, can we expand that to 1 hour? And then she asked if we could expand it to 2 hours. And I said, we have to be mindful of our audience as well, how much people can absorb, and because the material is so painful. So our compromise ultimately was 2 1/2-hour introductory episodes using multiple voices to take people through the whole history, then 8 individual episodes where we feature one person, and then a concluding episode where we reflected back on the series, principally through an interview with Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum, the now retired rabbi, lesbian rabbi from Temple Beth Simchat Torah in New York. And we also did a preview episode. So it was a huge challenge. There were some very difficult production meetings. Inga was co-producer with Nahani Rouse, who produces the podcast Can We Talk for the Jewish Women's Archive in Brookline, Massachusetts. So it was very much a team effort. We had a sound designer, we had an audio engineer, a photo researcher. It was such a huge project and was twice as expensive to produce as we expected and took way more time than we anticipated. But to my mind, it was worth it. It was worth it because this is the first time anyone has put anything together like this. And I actually can't believe that this is the first time. The material was out there. We've had the chance to bring it all together into one place.
Well, I think kind of an interesting thing, you talking about how you processed it and the team processed it. Having listened to many episodes of Making Gay History before, one thing that strikes me that's very different is in many of the other stories that you tell. Of course, there's moments of pain and persecution, but there's often like a lot of joy and celebratory moments, right? There's more of that story is available to tell. And with these stories, you're getting testimony that was collected really for the sake of collecting the worst thing that's ever happened to these people.
Yes. In fact, I asked Ina Novozelskis what Gary Philip was like when he came in, because he's very somber in his testimony. She said, "Oh, he was a blast. He was so much fun. That he's had in many ways a joyous life." But when people go back in time to
Yep.
talk about their experiences, but even so, with the Holocaust series we do, it's called Those Who Were There for the Fortunoff Archive. So many of the people who share their stories talk about how one woman in particular, I'll never forget what she said. She said on the outside, and she was beautifully dressed, made up, perfect makeup, jewelry. And she said, on the outside, I look like a normal person. And she said, inside, I am dead. And it so shocked me to hear that. Because I grew up being taught about the Holocaust in a way that suggested that people were liberated from the camps, they came to the United States, and they rebuilt their lives. And if not a happily ever after story, it was pretty close to that. Although even in my own life, one of my very close friends, Richard, who I'm still friends with, his parents were Holocaust survivors from Germany. They were terrible parents. They were unbelievably bitter and made their children's lives miserable. And the one thing Richard told me they said all the time was, if they complained about anything, "You have it good. You have no idea what we lived through." So yes, the usual Making Gay History stories, they move people to tears, but often it's tears of happiness or sadness over the person you've just met through these stories has died, because most of the people I interviewed have died of old age, or they died of AIDS during the AIDS crisis. This is a very different series. There is only one interview in the entire series that I conducted. I interviewed Richard Plant, who wrote The Men with the Pink Triangle, the first English language book about the experiences of gay men during the Holocaust. I don't know why I interviewed him. I can't remember, because it was so it was not what I was doing. The original Making Gay History book didn't cover World War II. I only mentioned briefly some of the people who gave testimony. One in particular talked about World War II being the happiest experience of his life, where he met lots of men and had lots of sex. But I don't know why I interviewed Richard Plant, but I did. So his voice is in this series.
Let's, I think you bring up, another interesting point, and that is how different experience survival was for people who went through this experience, and that post-war period looks very different. Certainly, it looks different for those that had the LGBTQ experience.
Yeah, and one thing that I didn't talk about in the presentation, but we do talk about in the series, is that gay men who were sentenced and sent to concentration camp for paragraph 175, if they hadn't completed their sentence by the time they were liberated, they were sent on to jail after the war. So they're not going to give testimony when they get out of jail. Why would they? They couldn't forget what they'd lived through, but they certainly didn't want to share it in the 1960s and 70s or 1950s.
Yeah. Right. And it's such an interesting thing to think about that experience versus what we typically think about, how people, all survivors, most survivors, it takes a minute to share that experience. But certainly those 175 victims were under the real threat of potentially being re-imprisoned and having their incarceration seen by the liberators as valid, so that they would then have to serve that time again. And I think that really doesn't occur to people today to think about that fear in the post-war.
Yeah, or Margot Human, who grew up in such a different time and didn't realize the value to us of hearing the story of a lesbian who fell in love in Theresienstadt. And she, in her conversations with Anna Haikova, who was a consultant to our project, came to understand through her conversations with Anna how important her identity was to her story, and how that love story had such great meaning, not just for her, but for us. To know that happened. I mean, this is not the Holocaust history I was taught in Hebrew school in Kew Gardens, Queens.
Right. Well, and it really is. I mean, Anna Haikova has done such incredible work bringing this history into mainstream Holocaust history, because for decades it was just not there. Or
No.
I think, as you mentioned at the very beginnings, if people know anything, it is about the paragraph 175 victims. But very often people don't understand why, right? I think they often want to look back and, impose, more like our current reasons, that it's something to do with religion, rather than, no, this really was a racial program for the Nazis about, reproduction. Their conversations about leaving women out of paragraph 175 and, deciding that ultimately they could probably be persuaded to have children for the Reich anyway, so they didn't really count.
It's unbelievable. When you start reading this stuff, you think, who could have believed this? But then we live in times like we do now, and you read some of the stuff that we read, and you think, how can people believe this? And the echoes today are to say uncomfortable, to say the least, very uncomfortable.
Well, and to think about what, queer life in the interwar period looked like, especially in Germany. Berlin was, it had a really vibrant queer life, and to see that be entirely destroyed by the Nazis. And, you mentioned Magnus Hirschfeld's institute. Most people don't even know that existed. To think about, not only was that research destroyed, but having that legacy of, what these types of questions were being asked at the time that they were, is a real loss to have that destroyed.
I had the opportunity to travel to Berlin for the 150th anniversary of Magnus Hirschfeld's birth. It was a big event in Germany. There was a program with more than 800 people and lectures and music. And I spoke with the guy who runs the Magnus Hirschfeld Society in Berlin, and he's managed to gather stuff from around the world that we thought had long been destroyed, including Magnus Hirschfeld's death mask.
Oh, wow.
We did a Making Gay History podcast episode, and I should tell your audience that people can find the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, in addition to our website. We did a whole episode on Magnus Hirschfeld. So you can learn about him. We don't have his voice, unfortunately. But I spoke to many people who knew of him and did research about him and found materials related to his institute that we thought had been destroyed but were recovered.
Well, and I think another kind of, dire warning from looking at his work and looking at the possibilities that were, say, Berlin and Germany and, the world in the 1920s and 30s, they were paragraph 175 existed, and yet there was a lot of, political moves to take it off the books, and that there was kind of this moment of rights progressing. And then, of course, we have the period of the Nazis. And so I think that, kind of a big lesson to take from this time is that once white rights are won, they're never fully guaranteed, right? We don't know when the next wave of persecution is coming.
We always have to be vigilant. That, I think, is the lesson of all of these stories, is that you're right. These rights are not earned for all time. They have to be fought for, and then we have to be vigilant. And that's something that I found shocking. We can't just celebrate. We have to remain vigilant.
Absolutely.
And now
I
we
think
have to
that
fight.
is
Yeah.
right. I think that is a perfect concluding thought to leave our audience with. So thank you so much for being here, for the work that you do, and thanks to our audience for joining us as well.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to all of you who joined on a I don't even know what night of the week is, Thursday night. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. Good night.
Bye. Thanks.